Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another Kano Tryharding Modern. So first order of business here, I realized that we've been putting out more Tryharding Modern than Mad Meta Magics, and it was because that was what I was capable of recording. And so we're probably going to have a stretch of time in the near future where we just try a bunch of crazy brews for like 3 or 4 days in a row, so that we catch the series up. Because I like having Tryharding and Mad Meta at the same number because the series are both about the same length. But second order of business, I'm going to be playing Mono Black Control again. Now, I have not done the things with the deck that I said I was going to do. I still plan on attempting a version with a lower curve, and I still plan on attempting at least 2 versions with colors splashed into it. I am not doing that today because with my water pump exploding or failing or corroding or whatever in my computer, I have not had the time to plan and record because my computer was basically unusable. So I am trying to record a few videos to cover the time where I will be at a family function and will not have time for a couple of days to record. But I don't have a lot of time to sit down, brew, and experiment because all of that time was taken from me. So I made some minor adjustments to this list, which I know people will just be thrilled because I'm playing Mono Black Control again, which is easily the most popular deck on my channel right now. It's what people want to see, and I've taken a few suggestions into account. My apologies, I was not able to find it this morning, but somebody suggested Soul Shatter, and at first I was a little bit not excited about this card. I was like, well, it is one of the better Edict effects. It nabs generally the creature or planeswalker that you want to hit with an Edict effect. It mitigates the traditional downside of Edicts. But you lose the life loss from Tribute to Hunger, and then you lose the life loss from Consuming Vapors, which are the 2 cards I replaced for 2 of Soul Shatter. But rereading the card a couple of times, I realized that this also fixes one of the problems we were seeing when we were playing Edict effects in the deck. So Tribute to Hunger, I think losing the life loss is going to hurt quite a bit, or the life gain, I mean. But Soul Shatter says each opponent. So we're not going to run into a situation where our opponent's going to have Leyline of Sanctity again, and then we're not going to be able to Consuming Vapors, and we're not going to be able to Tribute to Hunger. This will still work even in those circumstances. So I actually think that is enough of an upside that we're still going to play it, and we're going to test it out. So I really appreciate the person suggesting this. This is not a card that I recognized as kind of in my blind spot. Because while I did play a lot of Zendikar Draft, I didn't see a lot of the rares. The set didn't feel very impactful, and it's a set that I should go back and reevaluate so I know what's in it. There's a few standard sets that have been like that recently that I just wasn't paying attention, and I'll need to go back and do that. So second change is I've dropped Collective Brutality out of the main deck entirely, and I swapped up the Sign in Blood and another spell that I don't remember off the top of my head. And we're playing 3 Feed the Swarm in the main deck. Why are we doing this? So I don't like the life loss. When I was initially building this deck, I was trying to build it in a way that was going to be efficient with its life usage. A bunch of incidental life gain, which we still have, but to a lesser extent, is very important. However, with Urza's Saga being as prevalent and as strong as it is, I want a main deck answer that kills the land. This effectively becomes a sinkhole if your opponent plays Urza's Saga, and you don't lose any life for it. It kills tokens, so the Crashing Footfalls deck, or any of the other decks that produce a large token, you can kill the token without losing life, which is important. And occasionally, we're going to need to blow up a Leyline of Sanctity so that our Inquisitions and Thoughtseizes actually do something. And I think Feed the Swarm is the way to go. I have the 4th one in the board. I have Collective Brutalities. We can swap it out if we play against aggro and we really need the life gain or we really need the utility. We can make that transition quite easily. The other upside to playing Feed the Swarm here, as well as Soul Shatter over Consuming Vapors and other spells like that, is Feed the Swarm is another spell that kills Gaddock Teague, which I have no idea what the metagame looks like. I haven't actually played Magic I haven't played Constructed Magic in, let me check the calendar here, 8 days. So I have no idea what the metagame looks like because it's post-set release, so some stuff's going to get figured out, and I might actually just get obliterated by running up against a bunch of stuff that I didn't expect. So, anyway, I believe that is enough of my rambling. I was going to replace one of Obnixilis, because while Obnixilis is great, I don't like having multiple planeswalkers with the same name in this deck, because one of the sickest things you can do is play all of your planeswalkers because they're all differently named, and then you just have this huge array of effects that you get to play with. So let me take a quick scan of actual threats I can play, and I will be right back. Okay, I dropped an Obnixilis Reignited for Professor Onyx. 2 reasons. The Magecraft is going to help offset our life loss. The uptick still draws us a card, still costs us a life. It's actually draw card plus because it's a ransack the laboratory instead of just a straight draw. The -3 is a similar Soul Shatter effect. It doesn't hit planeswalkers, but still relevant. And then the alt kind of sort of wins the game, which Obnixilis' alt is great, especially versus control decks, but it does not win the game by itself. All right, so sideboard. Oh, I forgot to talk about the sideboard. So I replaced the Feed the Swarms with Collective Brutality. I still have the 4th Feed the Swarm in the sideboard. If we do need to destroy another enchantment, or we really need that effect, we can bring it in. Collective Brutality will often probably be a straight swap with Feed the Swarm, I'm anticipating, though that may not always be the case. I have split up the Damnation effect. We still have Damnation, because it's probably one of the best Black Wraths that exists. In this deck, we could probably play Mutilate for a similar effect if we wanted to kill indestructible creatures. I don't know how often that's going to come up. But I have Bontu's Last Reckoning because it comes down a turn earlier. If we really need a Wrath, we're probably okay with taking a whole turn off in order to use it. As well as Cry of the Carnarium, which this effect is going to be somewhat important versus the food deck, versus like a dredge deck or anything like that. The exile stapled onto the creature removal also helps not to trigger dies effects, so... Alright, I think that's all of the adjustments I made, so I'll see you guys in round 1. Alright, we're going to be on the draw for round 1. Oh man, I really got to put my brain in magic mode, because I just woke up. I've got plans with my brother later today. Alright, opponent starts Wooded Foothills, cracks for a forest, and suspends Crashing Footfalls. Well, we know what this deck is. We'll lead on a swamp. Let's go ahead and Inquisition. Brazen Borrower, Violent Outburst. Take Violent Outburst. Let's organize these piles. Pass the turn. So, semi-unrelated to the game at hand here. I actually last 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I went to a pool hall with a buddy of mine that I haven't seen in years, and I really missed him. And when I was there, I saw more human beings in a singular location than I have seen in the last 1.5 years, 2 years now? I don't even know what time scale. And of course, everybody was vaccinated, you know, it was a requirement to go in, that kind of a thing here. And so, in theory, it's low risk to have gone. And of course, we stayed away from everybody else anyway, but that's just because we're social recluses. And while I was there, like when I arrived and just saw all these people enjoying themselves, playing pool and all this stuff, I actually, like, was getting really anxious, super nervous. Just like... it was incredibly weird. I've not had a feeling like that before. But seeing all these people in one place, I was actually like, my heart rate elevated and I just wasn't feeling good. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, because I just hadn't seen that many people in one place in I don't know how long. I've never had that effect, but apparently COVID has put social anxiety in me. We do need to draw lands quite badly. The fact that my opponent did not cast Bone Crusher Giant tells me they either have a Violent Outburst in hand, or they have a Brazen Borrower that they're going to flash in. So we're going to play a Swamp, and we're probably going to have to full price a Baleful Mastery. If my opponent has another Cascade spell, we might be in huge trouble. We really need to draw Cabal Coffers. Oh, is it another burn? No, it's a Violent Outburst. Okay. So we are in trouble. Because my opponent is going to be able to hit us for 12. So full price, kill a Rhino, Violent Outburst resolves. That was a pretty good top deck. So opponent untaps. Oh, you know, I always forget that Crashing Footfalls, unlike other creatures that have Suspend, and I consider this a creature, does not give the creatures haste when they resolve. So I always like panic much harder than I need to. Alright, so opponent goes to combat. They're going to attack us for 4. They hit us to 14. Alright. Let's find ourselves a Cabal Coffers, shall we? Unless, of course, my opponent's playing Blood Moon, in which case we need to draw any land. Okay, they're casting Bone Crusher Giants. Let's go ahead and scry. Feed the Swarm. Feed the Swarm can kill a token for free. That would allow me to draw an extra card here. The problem is I think I would still die. So, Bone Crusher Giant resolves. We untap. And I'm going to scry instead of draw because I really need a Coffers. Swamp. That lets us kill a Rhino and gain 4. We'd go to 18 and we're taking 12 on the backswing. Yeah, we still need a Coffers. Okay, we draw a Swamp anyway. So, we can gain 4, go to 18, take 12, we'll go to 6. I wish I could play Professor Onyx this turn and just Edict them. Yeah, this does not look well for us. I'm going to do this on my turn because my opponent only has 1 card in hand, so there's no Force Negation risk. But the chance of them drawing a counterspell is non-zero, and I think if they do, we probably just die. So the way that this goes, the way that we recover from this is we either scry into or top deck a Cabal Coffers. We play Professor Onyx, we uptick, we draw a good removal spell, which we may not actually have the option to do. I guess Maze Mind Tome does gain us life, so I actually was doing the math wrong. So yeah, if we draw Cabal Coffers, we can play Professor Onyx, and we uptick Professor Onyx, and we draw a removal spell, then we probably are okay. Bloodchief's Thirst does answer a token. The problem is we're still taking 8. I'm going to bottom this because I really need to draw... Not that, actually, but we're dead. Okay. So while I could have kept the removal spell to stay alive, it makes it much harder to win next turn. So I think I made the right choice there. Okay, versus the Crashing Footfalls deck, which I'm going to look up. They do play Leyline of Sanctity. That's something we need to be aware of. I think we do bring in the 4th Feed the Swarm, Damnation, and Bantu's Last Reckoning. And I'm going to cut... I actually think Soul Shatter is kind of bad against them. It is an answer to Jace the Mind Sculptor, which they do play. But, and then I'm going to cut a Thoughtseize. And the reason I'm cutting a Thoughtseize is because they do play Leyline of Sanctity, which, if we keep a hand with a bunch of hand hate and no Feed the Swarm, we might really regret. But I believe that is our adjustment for this matchup. I would like to play first. Okay, we have a Cabal Coffers. We only have 1 Swamp, but we have a Maze Mind Tome and 2 untapped lands, so I'm willing to keep. We can also answer at least the first 2 Rhinoceri. So, lead on Swamp. Pass the turn. If we draw a Urborg at any point, this hand goes from good to great. Opponent leads on a Swamp, suspends Crashing Footfalls. We untap, we draw a 2nd Cabal Coffers, which I'll be completely honest is not what I wanted to see. Play Maze Mind Tome, pass the turn. Crashing Footfalls, ticking down, 2-3. They play a Scalding Tarn, and then they pass. So, scry on their end step. Opponent cracks Scalding Tarn for an island. Petty Theft. It really was a petty theft. Inquisition. I do not have mana to play Inquisition and Maze Mind Tome. We really need more lands. So, untap, we draw another Maze Mind Tome, play Cabal Coffers, replay Maze Mind Tome, pass the turn. I don't think they have any Ghost Quarter effects or ways to make us shuffle. And actually, if they Ghost Quartered us, it would probably be for the better anyway. Okay, opponent plays an island, so they're going to probably flash Brazen Borrower. They can also leave up Counterspell mana the whole time, but let's go ahead and scry on their end step. Thoughtseize to the bottom, still really desperately need lands. We untap, we draw Inquisition. Let's go ahead and draw an extra card. Swamp. Alright, play the Swamp. And we don't have any instants that are 1 mana, so let's go ahead and just Inquisition. Make sure our opponent doesn't have anything too scary going on over there. Okay, they're going to let Inquisition resolve. Opponent has Force of Negation, Brazen Borrower, and Force of Vigor. So I'm going to take Force of Negation from them. In theory, a deck full of kill spells can answer any number of Brazen Borrowers, but my opponent may Petty Theft the Maze Mind Tome. But there's no reason for them to do that now. So they flash in Brazen Borrower, they untap, Crashing Footfalls going down to 1. They play Wooded Foothills. They attack us for 3. We're going to go to 17. They have Brazen Borrower, Force of Vigor, 1 unknown in hand. They are going to tap Cabal Coffers. I am okay with this. Let's go ahead and scry. Wormcoil Engine. Wormcoil Engine's great if we can get enough mana to play it. The problem is we're not going to if we keep Wormcoil Engine on top. Now, if I had drawn a card there, that would have been fine. But we have another Cabal Coffers, so we really need to draw another land. This was also... Fire and Ice was also my opponent's top deck last turn. Okay. We draw... Feed the Swarm. I'd really like to save Feed the Swarm for a token, because that way I don't lose life. If I play out my other Maze Mind Tome, there's like a 100% chance my opponent casts Force of Vigor, which they might anyway. Well, we're playing Cabal Coffers this turn. Alright, yeah, I don't think I can not play out the Tome. Force of Vigor here would be a pretty strong blowout, though. Which, I mean, this probably means they're not going to Petty Theft. They'll just destroy both, because why wouldn't they? If we can find an Urborg, we're basically guaranteed to win. Because we have so much mana at that point, we can just play all of our spells in a single turn. Okay, my opponent is going to Petty Theft the Maze Mind Tome that is ready to gain us life. And so many card zones. Okay. Opponent casts Crashing Footfalls. I mean, at this point, I would take a Damnation. So they go to combat. They're going to attack us for 3. We take 3 and go to 14. Go scrying. Inquisition to the bottom. Untap. Scry on our upkeep. Swamp to the top. Because this now makes Coffers actually produce mana. So I can Bloodchief's Thirst, Feed the Swarm, Maze Mind Tome, I think, is the way I want to go here. Kill the Rhino. Kill the Rhino. Play Maze Mind Tome. Pass the turn. So we're taking probably 6 next turn. I just now realized that my opponent does not have double green in order to hardcast Force. Okay, this is bad. This means we need to find a Wrath. And ideally, we also Like, if we can play Professor Onyx and Wrath next turn, we're golden. But we gotta get there. Okay. So opponent is attacking us for 11 and taking us to 3. They only have 1 red mana, so they can't stomp Fire Ice or double stomp us. Go to 3. Scry on their end step. Consume Spirit would be nice, but we need another swamp first. So we untap. Scry on our upkeep. Mastermind's Acquisition. I have 6 mana. I could get a Wrath, but the problem is if I Wrath, my opponent is going to just Brazen Borrower and we die. So we scry again. Castle to the bottom. We draw Increasing Ambition. Yeah, that's gonna do it. Dang. So yeah, if we had had another swamp, if this Castle Lochthwain was a swamp, these coffers would actually produce mana, or more than 1 mana. And this is the problem with playing as many non-swamp lands as we have in this deck. Because people were like, why don't you play Ghost Quarter? Why don't you play Bajuka Bog? Like, I had some suggestions along that line, and this is what I'm trying to avoid. Like, I can play Professor Onyx and I can Edict them, but that does actual nothing. Mastermind's Acquisition, we were going to be a mana... you know, maybe I was supposed to keep Mastermind's Acquisition and then cast... and go and get Urborg and play Urborg. I don't actually think that does it, but maybe that was what I was supposed to do. Alright. We don't generally have this much trouble against the Cascade deck, but we also were denied like 8 life because they kept on summoning our Maze Mind Tomes, so... yeah, I'll see you guys in round 2. Alright, this is a hand without coffers, but we have Maze Mind Tome, Erebos' Intervention, and Soul Shatter. I would prefer if one of the cards in my hand was a Thoughtseize or something, but we'll keep this. Against an unknown opponent, I think this is fine. And it's a blue deck. And it's Merfolk. Alright. Well, we drew Coffers, which is great, because the minimum for Coffers to produce mana is 3 swamps. They play a Tide Shaper. Alright, so we only have 2 swamps now. That sucks. We untap. We draw Soul Shatter. So, kill Curse Catcher. They should sack it in response to stop us from gaining a life. Yep. Okay. Pass the turn. We are going to be 1-for-1-ing creatures here for a minute. They hit us for 3. We untap and draw a swamp. Play a swamp. Let's go ahead and Soul Shatter, because Reijere, when they still have 3 cards in hand and they have no Aether Vial, is a way that they can get a ton of stuff onto the board. They untap. They play an island. They Spreading Seas another swamp. And then they Spreading Seas... We're all... Mono Blue Devotion, apparently. Well, this is really shutting off Cabal Coffers until I play this Urborg. Play a swamp. Let's go ahead and Soul Shatter. Get rid of Tide Shaper. We have 2 swamps again. Okay, opponent plays Master of the Pearl Trident. Animates Mutavault. They hit us for 3. We go to 11. Well, I would really like to draw removal for that Master. That is removal for the Master. So play Urborg. Play Maze Mind Tome. Then let's go ahead and feed a Swarm. Hopefully they don't have a Spell Pierce. Maybe I should have played around Spell Pierce by playing Maze Mind Tome second. Not 100% on that. So next turn, hopefully we can cast Wormcoil Engine. If they have a 3rd Spreading Seas or a 2nd Tide Shaper and they can shut off Urborg, we're going to have a bad time. Because that means we will not be able to play Wormcoil Engine without drawing another land. They play a Waterlogged Grove and they cycle it. They animate a Mutavault and attack with it. Okay, we're going to 7. Opponent plays an Aether Vial. Okay. A lot less scary on turn 6 than it is on turn 1. On my opponent's end step, we'll scry. Worst Fears. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to put Worst Fears on top. There's not a lot that I can do by controlling my opponent, but it does technically buy me time. So Cabal Coffers. Let's go ahead and see how much mana we have. 9. Okay, we're going to play Wormcoil Engine and draw an extra card. Pass the turn. So opponent untaps. Aether Vial going to take up to 1. They draw. They play a land. And they pass. Let's go ahead and draw an extra card. Another Coffers. Alright. We untap. We draw Swamp. Draw another extra card. Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize our opponent. I really want Worst Fears to resolve. Because even if it is just a Time Warp, that's 6 extra life here. Opponent has Force of Negation. Okay. Play Cabal Coffers, number 2. Activate Coffers. Activate Coffers. Let's go ahead and Worst Fears. I think pretty much regardless of what version of this deck you're playing, Worst Fears, if you're playing Mastermind's Acquisition, you can play it out of the sideboard. I never want to cut this singleton from the main deck. Because it's what turns a great board position into a winning the game board position. Okay, so versus Merfolk, I definitely want the Wraths in the deck. I may want Collective Brutality, but I also don't want to dump too many creatures and stuff. Or too many, too many removal spells. Cry of the Carnarium is kind of good. The problem is 80% of their creatures make their other creatures larger than 2/2s. So Cry of the Carnarium is not that great. So I'm going to cut 2 Thoughtseizes for Damnation and Bantu's Last Reckoning, and I'll cut another Thoughtseize for Collective Brutality. I probably should be playing Kalitas as well. And I'm going to cut Professor Onyx for Kalitas. And run it back. Alright. We have Urborg, we have Cabal Coffers, we have a lot of black mana, and we have Inquisition and Feed the Swarm. I'm going to keep this hand. Hopefully we top deck more action, but the reason that I'm keeping this hand is because my opponent had a million Spreading Seas effects. So, kind of want to have some immunity to Spreading Seas. Okay, Inquisition. They have Curse Catcher, Counterspell, Master of the Pearl Trident, and Spreading Seas. I'm going to take Master of the Pearl Trident. Unless they draw another blue source, they can't counterspell next turn. They can Spreading Seas. That gives us a better Thoughtseize. And I don't care if they Vial in Curse Catcher. If I have to Feed the Swarm Curse Catcher, they actually, I think, don't sack Curse Catcher because us losing with a 1 life could matter to them. They play Mutavault, so no counterspell this turn. Spreading Seas. Alright. They're going to put Curse Catcher into play right now. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Thoughtseize. Okay, they have the Svelion of Sea and Sky and Counterspell. So take Svelion. Pass the turn. This card does a lot. Like a lot. Especially versus our deck. Opponent animates, Mutavault, plays their other Mutavault. And they're going to Vial in a 2-drop. They drew a Lord of Atlantis, that's pretty good. So they're going to hit us for 5. We untap and draw Blood Chief's Thirst. Okay. So feed the Swarm Curse Catcher. Okay. We lose a life. Play a Swamp. Blood Chief's Thirst, Lord of Atlantis. So opponent has 2 Mutavaults and a Counterspell. Anything they draw here is going to be good. Except maybe a 3rd Mutavault? No, even a 3rd Mutavault is good. So they Spreading Seas another Swamp. This is why I didn't play out Urborg yet. Okay. Animate a Mutavault, they hit us for 2. We untap and draw Liliana of the Dark Realms. So play an Urborg. Play Liliana. Which they can kill if they decide to attack her, but generally she's not evaluated as that big of a threat. Uptick will draw a Swamp. This way we draw less Swamps in theory. We have less of a chance to draw a swamp next turn. Pass the turn. We need to draw anything that gains life. Or any card advantage would be nice. They animate Mutavault. Animate Mutavault. They go to combat. Now they're deciding whether or not to attack us. They kill Lily. Okay, she bought us a turn. We untap and draw Bloodchief's Thirst, which, I mean, is fine. Here's a situation where I wish it was Fatal Push, which I suppose I should start keeping track of. Opponent keeps Aether Vial on 2, plays an island. Now has access to Counterspell. So they are going to keep Counterspell up. They hit us for 2, we go to 8. If they can Vial in a Lord and we can't do anything about it, I think we die. Play Cabal Coffers. Pass the turn. They untap. Aether Vial still staying on 2. They animate Mutavault. Go to combat. Attack us for 2. The problem is they have Counterspell. We draw Collective Brutality. Let's go ahead and 2-mode. Duress, Drain. Pitching a Swamp. They'll probably Counterspell this because if they draw a land, they can just animate all 3 Mutavaults and kill us. Yep. Okay, play a second Coffers. We have no idea what's in their hand. We have to assume... Well, so... We're a deck that's literally full of kill spells. They can go for it here. And it looks like they will. I think if they have another Counterspell, they may not, but they don't. They're just going to go for it and try and kill us. Yep. Alright. That is unfortunate. We just did not draw enough action. Alright, run it back. Could bring in Cling to Dust, I just don't think it's going to do enough. Like, it could help us cycle a little bit better, but not too worried about it, I think. Alright, I would like to play first. This hand works, so I will keep it. Lead on a swamp, pass the turn. I think with Feed the Swarm in the deck, it's possible that I should be playing Fatal Push instead of Bloodchief's Thirst. Okay, opponent immediately plays Aether Vial. We draw Mastermind's Acquisition. And we gotta play Mazemind Tome now. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps, Aether Vial, taken up to 1. Opponent plays a Waterlogged Grove. Silvergale Adept revealing Curse Catcher. So they revealed their trick for the turn. They just play Curse Catcher. Okay. So we're going to try and scry into a land. It's not a swamp, so I don't like it, but not a lot I can do about it. Untap, draw castle. So play castle. Bloodchief's Thirst to kill Curse Catcher. Okay. We will not pay for that. So 2 modes, we're going to kill Duress. And I'm going to pitch Feed the Swarm. The only enchantment I know of that they have we'd need to kill is Spreading Seas. Okay, unfortunately they don't have any instants or sorceries. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Aether Vial going to go up to 2. They're probably going to play Svelion and then Lord of Atlantis this turn. Granting their guys Ward is pretty good. So we really want to draw either Bantu's Last Reckoning or Damnation, I think. Let's go ahead and scry. Swamp to the top. Untap. Draw a swamp. Play a swamp. Let's go ahead and make sure I didn't leave it in the sideboard. Okay. Mastermind's Acquisition. And let's go ahead and get a Damnation. I'm not sure it matters, but a card we could consider is Consume the Meek, because it is an instant speed Wrath for most of the decks that we want to Wrath against. Okay, opponent plays a Lord of Atlantis. They untap, Aether Vial, Going up to 3, okay. That probably means they're drawing a Rage Ray? I don't know. Spreading Seas, Castle Lochthwain, okay. We're really going to have to hope they don't get a counterspell. They cycle Waterlogged Grove. They're going to hit us for 6. They draw a card. So if they can vial in a Merfolk in response to give Svellion Indestructible for the duration of a Damnation, that is going to be very bad for us. So let's go ahead and scry. Baleful Mastery, I will keep on top. We are going to need some more good single target removal. We draw Baleful Mastery. Okay, well, if they have a Merfolk they can vial in, we are kind of screwed. Okay, we have bought ourselves more time. Opponent did not have another 3-drop, or if they did, it's another Svellion. They play an island. They play a Curse Catcher. They play another Vial. And a third Vial. Alright. That is about as good as it can go for us. I think I'm going to draw an extra card with this Maze Mind Tome. That is something that I have not been doing enough. So one of the reasons this deck hasn't been functioning properly in several of the games I've gone back and reevaluated is that I do not draw enough cards with it. I scry to get to cards I need, and I'm prone to do that more often than not. But I need to be more comfortable drawing cards. And I think part of the problem is I have too much sorcery speed removal in the deck. So like I can't always leave up the option, you know. Something to consider anyway. Okay, opponent ticks up their other vials to 1. They draw up to 3 cards. They play an island. They go to combat. Now, I could Erebos' Intervention now, but I think it's better off on just basically any other creature they could play. So we're going to take the damage. We untap. We draw an Inquisition. Okay, Inquisition. Counterspell. Well, that's one counterspell out of the way. So if they vial in a Svellion on our end step, I'm actually going to 2-mana exile it because they would be out of cards and we would get around the Curse Catcher. Them drawing an extra card, I think, is way better than them having this card. Okay, opponent ticks up their other vials to 2. They play a second Curse Catcher. They go to combat. They attack for 1. I'm going to full price this, because I kind of want to dump cards out of my hand now because of Castle Lochthwain. I'd like to draw a land so I could Increasing Ambition and go get Coffers. I cannot Increasing Ambition as long as they have this Curse Catcher because we're at 5 mana exactly. Okay. Play the Swamp. Cast Increasing Ambition. Man, Increasing Ambition and Cabal Coffers is such a combo. Because it literally, like, puts you in the end game. It's a tutor for Coffers, you play the Coffers, then you immediately flash back Increasing Ambition, like, the next turn, and then you get whatever you want. And then you win the game. Okay. Opponent vials in a Master of the Pearl Trident. We take 2. Untap. We draw Swamp. Play Cabal Coffers. This puts us at a lot. I'm going to go ahead and kill the Master, leaving up 1 mana to pay for a Curse Catcher. Because gaining 9 life is very non-zero versus a Merfolk player who has nothing left in hand. They're going to dismember their own Master? Okay. That makes sense. This way we don't gain the life. Interesting that they're leaving in creature removal against us. I guess they did see the Worm Coil, but nobody knows what deck I'm playing except people who watch me. So if anybody else is playing mono black Coffers control, let me know how often you run into other people playing creature removal. Flashback Increasing Ambition. And then we're gonna go get this only counters instants and sorceries. Let's get Liliana and Obnixilis, I guess. I have 5 mana left. Let's get Mastermind's Acquisition and Obnixilis. Play Obnixilis. I always get Curse Catcher confused with, oh, what is that card? Judge's Familiar? No. Is it Mausoleum Wanderer? No, they all counter only instants and sorceries. Interesting. I thought one of them countered non-creatures, but Bantu's Last Reckoning is nice. Opponent untaps. And they violin a 2-drop. Silvergill Adept, so they get to draw. They play a Minamo, School at Water's Edge. And they attack us. We untap. We draw Thoughtseize. Uptick Ob. We get a Swamp. Thoughtseize our opponent. It's an Obero, which we don't have to worry about. Play a Swamp. How much mana do I have? 9, 14. So I can Mastermind's Acquisition for Emrakul, if I wanted. If I Mastermind's Acquisition for, I don't know, Torment of Hailfire, it'd be -4 down to 5. I could Torment of Hailfire X8. They could sack 5 permanents and then take 9 damage. So that doesn't really do anything. So I think the play here is to Mazemind Tome, draw an extra card. I'm gonna feed the Swarm. I could feed the Swarm, but I'll be going to a pretty low life total. I think next turn we just spend the turn Mastermind's Acquisitioning. So let's go ahead and Wrath. Hopefully this not being Damnation doesn't hurt us that much. I actually should have let them counter that and then just cast Feed the Swarm. Because then my lands would untap and I could Mastermind's Acquisition for the victory next turn. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have avoided the life loss that hard. So we untap, we draw, Inquisition, draw an extra card off Ob, Baleful Mastery, that makes my life easier. Inquisition, they're going to vial in, they're keeping Obero in hand, Svelion, okay. Full price. Now, well, they can't do anything about it. Pass the turn. If we draw another Coffers, we can just get Emrakul or Baleful, or Torment of Hailfire them to death. Opponent draws a card. They Spreading Seas our Cabal Coffers, which is bad, but is not the end of the world because we can feed the Swarm to kill it. They play Obero, they have 1 unknown card in hand. So on their end step, Scry. Liliana, the Last Hope. Good, but I don't think it's good here. We untap. We draw. Inquisition. Hand check. Land. Okay. Feed the Swarm, Spreading Seas. Add a bunch of mana. Is there a card that's better? Should I just Consume Spirit them? I think I draw an extra card with Mazemind first. Another Cabal Coffers. That does change my mind. I can almost get and play Emrakul here. I'm 1 mana short. But let's go get Torment of Hailfire, because I'm 99% sure that it wins the game. Torment of Hailfire, X12. The more efficient Black Fireball. Opponent discards a card, sacks 3 permanents. And dies. Nice. And we beat Fish. I'll see you guys in round 3. Alright. It's a little risky, but I am going to keep it. If we draw another swamp, we have a regular hand. If we draw an Urborg, this hand becomes really good. No hand hate, but we do have removal. We are also on the draw. Ancient Ziggurat. This is probably humans. It's humans. Well, the good news is we're a pile of removal versus the humans deck. And Urborg's amazing. We're going to lead on Swamp. I don't want to play Urborg yet, because if my opponent has like a double Ancient Ziggurat hand, I don't want them to be able to play Aether Vial as an example. Okay, Noble Hierarch. If they kept a 1-lander, I'm going to shoot that Noble Hierarch with Feed the Swarm. Okay, we take 3. Silent Clearing, okay. It really no longer matters. We untap, draw another Cabal Coffers, play Urborg. Feed the Swarm, kill Champion. I'm not really going to be one to stop my opponent from casting their spells at this point, so hitting the creature that's actually going to deal us the damage I think is more important. Opponent vials in a 1-drop. Another Noble. Then plays Athalia's Lieutenant. Okay. That is bad, but not the end of the world. We're taking 3. Go to 13. We untap and draw Ugin. Play Cabal Coffers. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. If we can make it to Ugin, we definitely win this game. Unless we get, like, freebooted, Meddling Maged, and, I don't know, Silverquill Silencer all at once. Silverquill Silencer actually doesn't do anything. So opponent plays Meddling Mage. If they name Baleful Mastery as a complete shot in the dark, I would be surprised. I'd say at the least. A lot of the removal we play in this deck is very uncommon, and this deck isn't popular. So my opponent knowing what to name here would be incredible. Yeah, they're really thinking hard. They don't know. Now, I have had opponents blind name Ugin, because, like, if you follow logically and you think about, well, what could he do with all that mana? Ugin is a really good option. So that would actually surprise me the least. Out of all of the cards in our deck that they could name, I think Ugin is the most reasonable one to have guessed at random. It's also the most punishing one for us, but, like, what are you gonna do, right? So let's see what they name. Damnation. Not a bad choice, still incorrect. We don't even main deck it. Its opponent goes to combat. And they attack with everybody. Do I want a Baleful Mastery? I think the answer is yes. Oop. Just prevent a little bit of damage here. Opponent is going to vial in a Phantasmal Image on Thalia's Lieutenant. Okay. That would be why they attacked the way they did. They hit us for 4, we go to 9. We untap and draw Wormcoil Engine. So if I play Cabal Coffers, I can tap 3 lands for 4 mana, and then I can go up to 5. I might have to Mastermind's Acquisition for a card to kill Meddling Mage, just to stay alive. Yeah, so we are playing Coffers this turn. Oh, we go to 6? What are the odds we die if I play Wormcoil? Because my opponent does play... I'm pretty sure they play Path. I could Mastermind's Acquisition for... There's not a lot I can Mastermind's Acquisition for. I could go get Bloodchief's Thirst, kill Meddling Mage. We'd probably still... Actually, we would die if they had another Phantasmal Image or Thalia's Lieutenant. If they have Reflector Mage or General Kudrow, let me take a look at my deck list here really quick and think about this. This is the one really tough part of playing this deck, because you are playing a control deck, right? I could go get another Baleful Mastery as removal, and that would be the only removal I could play that doesn't cost me life. I think we gotta go with Wormcoil Engine. But if they have Reflector Mage, we're just toast. And there's not a lot we can do about that. So opponent will tick up Vial to 3, or not. That's interesting. They play a Champion. Counter on Lieutenant. Freebooter. Alright. Well, opponent definitely freeboots Ugin away. 100%. Because if we play Ugin next turn, they lose the game instantaneously. Yep. Okay, and they pass. We untap. We draw Feed the Swarm. Ball Coffers. How much mana do I actually have? 11. Feed the Swarm Freebooter. Go to 7. Play Ugin. -2. Go to combat. Is there a human, like, that destroys artifacts on 2, enters the battlefield, printed anytime recently? I don't think so. I know War Priest of Thune, and I'm pretty sure that only hits enchantments. But that card can't be main deckable, is it? Maybe with Urza's Saga, War Priest of Thune is main deckable. But that doesn't change the fact that I don't think there's a human that naturalizes. Not on 2. And even then, that's not that big of a deal. Alright, we attack, opponent scoops. Cool. So versus our opponent, Bantu's Last Reckoning, Cry of the Carnarium, Damnation in. Collective Brutality. I'll drop 1 Feed the Swarm for Collective Brutality. Thoughtseize is going to be much less important in this matchup. Kalitas might actually matter. Kalitas I like a little bit better than Worst Fears. And we'll run it back. Yeah, but cards like Meddling Mage and Humans, Nevermore, stuff that you run into tangentially, Gaddock Teague, is one of the reasons why this deck plays as diverse of removal as it does. That's why I don't just center on, like, Baleful Mastery is our best removal spell. There's a reason I'm not playing 4. Okay, opponent starts with Noble Hierarch. We untap, we draw Urborg, play a Swamp, Thoughtseize. If we can get a good Collective Brutality here, that'll be fantastic. So opponent has no lands, so we're going to take their 2-drop. Now they could Phantasmal Image their Noble Hierarch. That doesn't strike me as particularly good. I knew they'd be playing Elite Spellbinder someday. Opponent top decks like a god. They play Elite Spellbinder. They can take Brutality or Erebos' Intervention. If they take Erebos' Intervention, it is less good, but Collective Brutality is better now. They could take Ugin, but that just stops them from freebootering Ugin. They take Brutality. Okay. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Intervention to kill Spellbinder. We gain a life. Pass the turn. So now my opponent doesn't really have that great of a hand. They're going to need to top deck some threats, because all of their guys are underpowered. Okay, opponent top decks another land. Now they're drawing exactly what they need to draw. Now, if we play Ugin, they do have Deputy of Detention. So if we could draw an Inquisition and nab that out of their hand prior to that, and then just draw, like, I don't know, Cabal Coffers, that'd be sick. Opponent attacks us for 1. Doesn't particularly matter to us, that's fine. So this card versus our deck probably doesn't matter that much. I think versus our deck, it is worse than Freebooter. I don't think this card is bad in general. Okay, we draw Maze Mind Tome, which is actually pretty good. Let's go ahead and play Urborg. Play Maze Mind Tome. We can start scrying, and then draw on extra cards. Opponent might sack Canopy or Clearing here. I imagine if they sack Clearing. Man, am I good. Alright. So they draw an extra card. They untap. Are they going to image Hierarch? They sack Canopy? They must have drawn a land. Okay, unclaimed territory. I was going to say, because they can't be sacking lands like that if they don't have a way to make up the mana difference. They attack with Exalted. They hit us to 17. Stop on their end step, so we'll Maze Mind Tome Scry. Mastermind's Acquisition to the top. We untap. Draw Mastermind's Acquisition. Play Swamp. Go Tutoring. Get Coffers. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Discord. Nope. It's the Spellbinder. Okay. They see Ugin and Coffers. Yeah, once again, that means they just can't freeboot it. The 2 mana to us probably will not make that much of a difference when we're under this light of pressure. Let's go ahead and scry. Inquisition. That gets rid of Deputy of Detention, so I'm actually going to keep that. We untap. Draw Inquisition. Play Coffers. We have 7 mana. So, Inquisition. Get rid of Deputy of Detention. Then we can draw an extra card. Another Swamp. And we'll just, yeah, we'll 2-mode. We'll go ahead and kill and drain. Kill Spellbinder, drain them. Pitching a Swamp we don't need. Pass the turn. Yeah, because like half the stuff they have in their hand is just reactive. So like they can play Champion and they can Phantasmal Image Champion, and that's fine. But Reflector Mage does almost nothing to us unless we're relying on Wormcoil to survive. They play a Reflector Mage just to put some bodies on board. Pumping up the Champion. We untap. Draw a Swamp. So if I play a Swamp, I have 9 mana. Because this would be 6, then I would have 3 more. I am 1 mana away from playing Ugin. Let's draw a card. Gain life. Kalitas. Well, that's something to do this turn. I actually want them to Reflector Mage this, because it means they're not playing something scary. And, well, we can't replay it next turn, it's off the board, then we can just recast it post-Ugin. And I'm okay with that. Because there's nothing they can stop us... They can't stop us from casting Ugin unless they have Meddling Mage. That is the only thing that could possibly go wrong. Okay, Phantasmal Image, Reflector Mage. They bounce Kalitas. They play Thalia. That is not going to do it. And Coffers really takes the taxes out of your opponent. It's just like, yep. Oh, my audit's due? Let me just reach into my Coffers. Get all of the mana I need to pay that. Nice. Yep, game's over. Now, if our opponent had gotten Meddling Mage, we would have been fine. Alright. Well, we're 2-1. See you guys in round 4. Alright, we're on the play this time. We have Hand Hate, we have Maze Mind Tome, we have 2 Swamps and 2 Cabal Coffers. I think we keep. Alright. Lead on Inquisition. And it's Blitz. So we definitely take Soulscar Mage here. Pass the turn. If our opponent does Serum Visions into a second land, they can Manamorphose into Stormwing Entity. Kind of want to see how they scry. 2 cards to the bottom. That tells me they did not find what they wanted. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Excellent. Play Maze Mind Tome. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps and draws Arid Mesa. They crack Arid Mesa. It's probably Manamorphose and Stormwing, so we need to find something that can kill Stormwing Entity and hopefully not feed the Swarm. Okay. Scry. Swamp to the bottom. If I draw Feed the Swarm, I think I have to cast it. I could scry pre-draw, but that only helps if I get Baleful Mastery. I think I would actually rather draw the extra card, so let's see what we get. Bloodchief's Thirst is close. I can cast that next turn. I don't remember if I took out Dismember or not. I think I did. Okay. Pass the turn. So we're probably taking a big hit here. The only way we're not is if my opponent plays more threats this turn, but that would also be bad. So they're attacking us with Stormwing Entity, Lava Dart. And we go to 15. Our opponent is going to play another Stormwing Entity. That is also a problem. We untap. Let's go ahead and scry. Thoughtseize. Might technically save me life, but I can't really cast it this turn. That's not what I wanted to draw, I'll be honest. Play Cabal Coffers. Full price. We'll kill the full art one. So the life gain from Maze Mind Tome can offset Feed the Swarm and make it cost only 1 life if we kill Stormwing Entity with it. Opponent plays another Fiery Islet. Into a Serum Visions. We're taking a lot of damage this turn. Into a Swift Spear. I would much rather Feed the Swarm Swift Spear, I'll be honest. They're going to hit us for 5. Are they Mutagenic Growth now? Or are they still going to hold on to it in case they draw a 3rd Stormwing Entity? Lava Dart again. Am I dead? So Lava Dart, Growth. I might actually be dead. That's 11. Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt. Yep, we're dead. I hate free mana effects so much. So, Feed the Swarm. Even if they're running Blood Moon, we can't be running Feed the Swarm. We'll bring in Bantu's Last Reckoning, Damnation, Collective Brutality. And I think I want Cling to Dust here over a Thoughtseize, and another Collective Brutality over a Thoughtseize. I don't want to cut Thoughtseize entirely, because Thoughtseize is important for getting rid of Stormwing Entity. Although us being on the play, Inquisitioning them and still losing is pretty bad. I really dislike Blitz for a whole host of reasons. But mainly because I think it's really uninteresting. I think it's less interesting than Burn. Like, the decisions you make are more linear than Burn, which is saying something. We saw how little Maze Mind Tome actually did. But I don't think I can mulligan this hand. I think I have to keep it. Hopefully my opponent mulligans a couple of times, and then we can really neuter them with a Thoughtseize, but they did not. So Swamp, Thoughtseize, Vapor Snag, Swift Spear, Serum Visions, and Manamorphose. Take Swift Spear. Pass the turn. Vapor Snag will do nothing to us, thankfully. I mean, unless we get a Wormcoil Engine, which is unlikely. Let's see how they scried. 2 cards on top. That does not inspire confidence. We draw Damnation, play Urborg. Play Maze Mind Tome, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They drew a Swift Spear. Then they play an Arid Mesa. They go to combat. They attack us for 1. We go to 17. Scry on their end step. We gotta find land. Scry again. Cabal Coffers counts. Draw Cabal Coffers. Play it. Play Maze Mind Tome. Pass the turn. They untap. We have a lot of scries to try and find our 4th land. They crack Arid Mesa. Get a Steam Vents untapped. Expressive Iteration. Okay. I might have to use Liliana as a removal spell. They get another Swift Spear. They play it. I think I do have to Damnation if I can find a land. If I can't find a land, there's a really good chance I just die. There's a land. Untap. Draw. Play Castle. Damnation. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw. Play Arid Mesa. I guess they played this mountain, I think. Manamorphose. They play Stormwing Entity, which I might have to use Liliana of the Dark Realms as a kill spell. Stop on my opponent's end step. Scry. Soul Shatter to the top. We untap. Draw Soul Shatter. Play Soul Shatter now so we can avoid having to... we can play around a Spell Pierce, basically. Opponent could Vapor Snag their own Stormwing entity if they don't have another threat. That's not actually a terrible play. I wish Liliana had one more loyalty. Even if her ult was -7, just so you could play her and use her ability before she dies. Okay. Soul Shatter goes off. Draw a card with Maze Mind Tome. Okay, Bantu's Last Reckoning isn't bad. I probably should have scried before I drew there, but I would have kept Bantu's Last Reckoning on top anyway. For this reason. Okay. Want to play Swift Spear, play Serum Visions, then play Stormwing Entity. The reason that I have to Wrath basically anytime my opponent has more than one creature is because it's bad if they have more creatures in their hand, but like prior to the Damnation we thought seized, Swamp on top, we untap, draw Swamp, play the Swamp, 5 mana, so play Lily, get another Swamp, Bantu's Last Reckoning, wipe the board, pass the turn. So our lands don't untap next turn, but we have a Planeswalker active, and we will be making land drops. Opponent Expressive Iteration. I'm really surprised that they're still printing uncommons, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm really surprised that they're still printing uncommons in standard sets that can see play in modern, in top tier decks. And honestly, I think that's something they should do more of. Asterisk. I will keep Bloodchief's Thirst because it's a removal spell that handles their bigger creatures. Uptick Lily again. Get another Swamp. Play Swamp. Pass the turn. Because it lowers the price of entry for top tier modern decks. If standard uncommons can see play, then in theory that is a rare that you don't have to get from a set that may or may not have been printed a lot. They Lightning Bolt Lily, they Lightning Bolt Lily. Okay, Liliana did a great job right there. We untap, we draw a Swamp, play a Swamp, activate Coffers. Let's go get a card from our deck, and I don't think it's Wormcoil. We have 7 mana. Ugin would be nice, but Ugin may not survive. I think we get Liliana Dreadhorde General here. Like, Professor Onyx is good, but Liliana Dreadhorde General makes tokens as a Barter in Blood. Has a really high loyalty. Yeah. Player. Make a zombie. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Fiery Islet. Cycles it. And scoops. Awesome. Oh, I need Kalitas in this deck. And I think it's better than Worst Fears, simply because, like, if we cast Worst Fears in this matchup, we probably win. Because we can just waste all of our opponent's resources and there's nothing they can do about it. The problem is getting to 8 mana. Like, card's great, but I think keeping it in the wish board is probably best in this scenario. I think I'd rather have a 4 mana 3/4 that gains us life. The problem is we will not be on the play for game 3. If we had... If Obnixilis was a land, this hand would be perfect. I mean, provided it was not Cabal Coffers, I guess, but... We got a mulligan. This is much more reasonable. Still not great. We're going to put back Liliana, and we need to draw mana. Without a Maze Mind Tome, it's a little bit sketchy, but maybe our opponent will have a Dead of Braid in hand. They mulled to 5, so hopefully that's good news for us. They play a Soulscar Mage. We untap. We draw Baleful Mastery. Baleful Mastery is another playable spell. That's good. I may have to pitch Damnation to this Collective Brutality. Opponent Serum Visions. They put both cards on top. They're going to hit us for 2. Okay. What that tells me is my opponent... My opponent needs lands. Probably put 2 lands on top of their deck. I maybe should 3-mode this. I don't think I will need Damnation. And I don't think this is actually going to kill this Soul Scar Mage. I think it's very likely my opponent has a mutagenic growth. Or not. Take Expressive Iteration from them. Alright, things are looking up. We just need to draw lands. With Maze Mind Tome, in theory, we will. This opponent top decks a Fiery Islet. Cast another Serum Visions. Play Swift Spear. They're going to hit us for 2. We untap and draw Professor Onyx. Play Maze Mind Tome. We gotta find lands. Or we're not going to win this game. Okay, opponent plays a Sprite Dragon. Still has 2 cards in hand. We do have Baleful Mastery in the event that we don't draw land. If we draw a land, we're going to fire off Soul Shatter right away. There's a Swamp. Untap. Draw the Swamp. Play the Swamp. No reason to give my opponent a chance to find some trick around that. Double red, Manamorphose. We would now be fine drawing a Cabal Coffers even. Okay. I will Baleful Mastery that Stormwing entity. Provided, of course, in the top 3 cards of my deck is another land. And if it's not, I will alternate cost Baleful Mastery and be sad about it. Opponent attacks us for 2, we go to 12. Scry on our end step. Urborg to the top. We untap. Draw Urborg. Play it. Kill Stormwing. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Kalitas is not a terrible play here, but it's not likely he does that much. Opponent plays a land, second Swift Spear. He still might, I guess. Sucks that we had to pitch Damnation, but I think Kalitas is still better. Okay, we go down to 10. Scry on my opponent's end step. Inquisition, not useful here, still need lands. Untap. I'm going to scry. Gain life. Coffers on top. Draw Coffers. Play Coffers. Yeah, we gotta play Kalitas first. If we draw a cheap removal spell to go alongside Professor Onyx to gain us life, that'll be excellent. Pass the turn. Kalitas may not survive. Or might just get Vapor Snagged. Opponent plays a Soul Scar Mage. If they bolt him, they can shrink him to nothing. They play a tap land. That tells me they don't have anything, which is awesome. We untap. We draw Wormcoil Engine, which is excellent. Go to combat. Attack for 3. Keeping the lifelink back on defense technically is better. Play Wormcoil. Pass the turn. Like, we do get kind of blown out by a Vapor Snag. Vapor Snag plus Lava Dart would be a huge amount of damage. I don't think it would quite be lethal, but it is really scary. We're still in a very precarious situation. Okay. Opponent evidently drew nothing, so we got him. Excellent. I have been trying to build this deck in such a way that Blitz is a good matchup for us. The problem is it's not quite consistent enough for Blitz to actually be a good matchup against us. Or for us, I should say. But I'm glad that we squeezed that one out. That was good. I'll see you guys in round 5. Alright. Round 5, we're on the play. Urborg, Swamp, Maze Mind's Tome. I'm going to keep versus an unknown opponent. We have good play on 3 in Soul Shatter, and the only problem is if this is a control deck. Tron? Alright. We can probably beat Tron. Swamp to the top, pass the turn. I don't have any land destruction in this deck. I keep thinking to myself, maybe I'll put, what is it? Scavenger Grounds in the side, but... Alright. So this is probably Eldrazi Tron. Play a Swamp, pass the turn. We can either draw an extra card off Maze Mind Tome, or we can cast Soul Shatter. They play Maze Mind Tome. Okay. They scry. Draw another swamp. Untap. We draw Lily. Play Lily. We need to make our land drops, and Liliana guarantees that we can. I still feel like this Planeswalker is extremely underrated. I know she's not great, and I have a lot of nostalgia, and it's kind of a pet card of mine, but, like, I think the card is a lot better than people evaluate it to be. So they can either take Wormcoil Engine or Soul Shatter. I guess they could take Mastermind's Acquisition if they're really scared of what we could do with a Mastermind's Acquisition. Thought-Knot Seer dies to Liliana on board, so we can use our mana for other things if we desire. If we draw a Cabal Coffers, we can play a lot of scary stuff. They take Wormcoil Engine. Then they scry. Alright, stop on their end step. Scry Swamp to the bottom. We untap. Draw Thoughtseize. Play a Swamp. Oh wait, we can't Thoughtseize because... Chalice. So kill Thought-Knot. We draw... Swamp. Okay. Pass the turn. So we can draw an extra card, post another Thought-Knot Seer. We could kill basically anything they play with Soul Shatter. Okay, they play a Smasher. They go to combat. They attack Lily. Soul Shatter. Okay. Would have been better as a tribute to Hunger there, but... Okay, they play a Matter Reshaper. And draw a card. So stop on their end step. Draw a card. Baleful Mastery, that's excellent. We untap, we draw Bloodchief's Thirst. So I could Acquisition to go get a Cabal Coffers. I don't think I'm going to do that yet. Uptick Lily, get a Swamp. Play the Swamp. I cannot cast Bloodchief's Thirst at any point. Play a new Maze Mind Tome. Pass the turn. So depending on what they play, we may have to Baleful Mastery. I would like to keep Lily alive for now. Okay, put a Plays of Thought-Knot Seer, that's fine. So probably take Ugin. They might actually take Mastermind's Acquisition here. Because there's like a straight tutor when we have this much mana is actually pretty terrifying. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Opponent gains life, draws another card. So really we just need to find removal here. Oh, I should have scried in response. That was really bad. Okay. Yeah, I think I may have punted this game. Opponent gets a Liquid Metal Coating. We untap. We draw Professor Onyx. That kind of lets me recover from this blunder a little bit. Get a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Play Professor Onyx. Kill Thought-Knot. We draw Cabal Coffers, which is great. Throw out Thoughtseize just so we get the Magecraft trigger. Pass the turn. So opponent can Coding and kill Urborg here if they want. 7 mana. Is this Big Karn? Ugin. Okay. That lets them play Liquid Metal Coating for free. And they can kill Liliana. I think they killed the wrong one there. They're going to animate her into a creature. They have a creature removal spell? That seemed questionable. She can't be dismembered. Chalice on 2. I mean, okay. Oh, she stays a creature. That's fine. Question mark. Go to combat. Kill Karn, Great Creator. Uptick. Get a Maze Mind Tome. Play Cabal Coffers. Add 8 mana. Kill Ugin? With Ugin? Draw Lily the Last Hope. Player. Uptick. No targets. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with that liquid metal coating play. Really? I don't think that was that good. I think they should have just blown up Urborg. That was probably just a bit... Like, they're probably holding Dismember and maybe thought that was what they needed to do. Okay, all is dust. Glad we have Ugin as a threat. Alright, we untap. Draw Baleful Mastery. Uptick Ugin, shoot our opponent. Draw a card. Play a Swamp. Play Maze Mind. Oh, we can't. Never mind. Alright, pass the turn. Hopefully I don't regret that, like if I need to cast a huge Erebos' Intervention or something. Opponent plays a Reality Smasher. They go to combat. They attack Ugin. Cast a very huge Erebos' Intervention. We will discard Bloodchief's Thirst. Well, unless they have a Pithing Needle, we will be able to alt Ugin. Not sure how good that is, though. They play an Eldrazi Temple, we untap. They scoop. Good! Let's see, we would have drawn 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, we would have had a million mana. Then let's see, we draw off of Maze Mind. We draw off of Maze Mind. We draw off of Ob. We probably were winning that game. Okay. So sideboarding. Wrath's in. What is bad? Our 1-mana spells are pretty bad. I think I'm actually going to put Emrakul in the main deck. So, we're on the draw. I do not like... Actually, I like Thoughtseize more than I like Inquisition. I apologize. The Dachshund is going absolutely crazy because the lawnmower was started outside. A Feed the Swarm, I think, regrettably has to stay in because it's hard removal. Even though it's for overcosted threats, I don't think I can cut it. So let's go ahead and run it back. Alright, we have 2 Swamps, Cabal Coffers, Castle Lochthwain, Wormcoil, and Soul Shatter. I think I will keep this. Alright, opponent leads Tower Map. We untap, we draw Swamp. Play Swamp, pass the turn. So this doesn't look like a turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer, which I think would be one of the better things our opponent could do versus us. They play Power Plant, so they will have Tron on turn 3. If they have Karn Great Creator, Soul Shatter does kill Karn Great Creator. We draw Maze Mind Tome. Play it. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play Urza's Mine. 7 mana. Okay, this might be Big Ugin, or this might be Ugin then. They play Ugin. So Soul Shatter looking pretty good here. Seriously, mad props to whoever told me to put Soul Shatter in this deck. Bummer, dude on YouTube. Thank you. I found the comment. Opponent is going to play Pithing Needle, so let's get a Scry in. Inquisition to the bottom. Okay. Pithing Needle probably names Maze Mind Tome, though that shuts off my opponent's Maze Mind Tome if they do. And they play a Matter Reshaper. We untap, draw Liliana Dreadhorde General, fire off Soul Shatter immediately, pass the turn. We may have to use Consume Spirit as a kill spell. 10 mana for our opponent. They play a Reality Smasher. Well, if there was ever a time to draw a Damnation, it's now. Opponent, Spatial Contortions to get extra damage in. Okay, show me the Damnation. Thoughtseize, that is not Damnation. Play Cabal Coffers. Activate it. And I think we gotta consume Spirit here to stay alive. But if they have another Smasher, if they have another Spatial Contortion, we're dead. Expedition map. So opponent gets a free Expedition map here. They activate it immediately. If we draw a swamp and my opponent doesn't play any more threats, we can play Liliana Dreadhorde General and Barter in Blood. Or we can play Wormcoil Engine. I think Wormcoil Engine is actually harder for them to answer and doesn't leave us dead to another Reality Smasher. So I think that's the route we're going to go if we draw mana that allows us to cast it. So opponent's going to hit us for 7, we go to 2. We draw Worst Fears, and we lose. Because I can play Castle Lochthwain, but it's not a swamp. So Cabal Coffers does not count it. Yep. Alright. Scoop. Really close there, really close, but unfortunately we just didn't have it. Run it back. Pithing Needle on Maze Mind Tome really sucked there. But we will be on the play for Game 3. I would like to play first. Really close. If this had another land, I would consider it. Double Thoughtseize, double Baleful Mastery, Bontu's Last Reckoning. If there was a one-lander I was considering keeping versus Eldrazi Tron, I think if my opponent mulligans to like 5, this hand would be good. Well, they kept 7. We're going to 5. Alright. We'll keep. Put back Liliana. Put back Erebos' Intervention. I do not like this hand, but it is what we have to keep. Lead on a Thoughtseize. If we could somehow protect Liliana to ult, there's a good chance that ult could win us the game. This opponent has Urza's Mine, Waste, Cavern of Souls, Reshaper, Reshaper, Smasher. Take Reshaper. Pass the turn. Opponent leads on Urza's Mine, nothing. We draw Maze Mind Tome, which is probably one of the best cards we could draw here. Play Maze Mind Tome, pass the turn. Opponent plays a Wastes. Well, if Eldrazi Tron is actually a legitimate threat in this metagame, I will put Break the Ice in the sideboard. Swamp to the top. We untap. Draw Swamp. Play Swamp, play Liliana. Uptick. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps, they draw. They play Cavern on Eldrazi, so they'll play Matter Reshaper. Okay. Scry. Erebos' Intervention. Actually, Erebos' Intervention to the bottom. Untap. Let's draw an additional card. We draw Swamp. Play the Swamp. I can uptick here, and that keeps Liliana at parity, which I think is fine. I don't want them to play Reality Smasher pre-combat, so even if I just Erebos' Intervention X1 here, I think that's okay. Opponent plays an Urza's Tower. 4 mana, they have Thought-Knot Seer. Okay. They can take either one of our cards. That's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it's fine. I'm going to take Feed the Swarm. They go to combat. They attack Lily for 1. She goes to 4. We untap. Do we scry before we draw? I don't think so. We draw a Thoughtseize. So uptick. Actually. Is lead on. No, I can't Thoughtseize this turn. Thoughtseize bad. I mean, if they draw a land to play Reality Smasher, we're probably toast anyway. But I think the correct play here is to uptick on Thought-Knot Seer, Erebos' Intervention X3, and then if we draw a land, we can Thoughtseize. Actually, now we scry. Worst Fears to the bottom. Alright. Let's draw a land for that Thoughtseize. Kill Thought-Knot. We draw Damnation. Okay, Damnation is a good backup plan. If my opponent plays Reality Smasher and kills Liliana, at least we'll have a Damnation. Okay, here comes Reality Smasher. Thank you, Liliana, for all of your hard work. There was a better way to play that, but it required knowing what was on top of our deck, which we couldn't. We draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Thoughtseize you. Another Reality Smasher? And a Karn? So I think the correct choice here is to take Karn from them. They'll play another Reality Smasher. We can activate Castle. If they draw another Thought-Knots here, we're just done. But we have to get greedy with this Wrath or we just lose. I'm trying to limit my opponent's options to force them into playing the creature. But they have to flip something irrelevant off of this Matter Reshaper in addition to all of this stuff. Thoughtseize Curse. Got it. That probably means we're dead, because with my opponent being able to back up this board with a Reality Smasher, I can't think of any sequence of 2 draws that actually gets us to beating that Karn. The opponent's going to hit us for 8. We have to activate Castle Locthwain and then go to 10. I mean, maybe a Baleful Mastery, but no, it doesn't, because of Reality Smasher's writing text. The inbuilt protection of it. We got another Thoughtseize, but then my opponent's going to start Liquid Metal Coating. Thoughtseize my opponent. Take Smasher. Cast Damnation. If my opponent just plays Coating, okay, they draw Forsaken Monument. That's going to be pretty good for them. And they drew a land. I was like, if they don't hit a land, we can Baleful Mastery to take out Karn, but the fact that they can play Ugin and Liquid Metal Coating, that's so huge. Yeah, too many things went wrong this game. Too many things went wrong. If my opponent missed on playing the Ugin there, we could answer their only Planeswalker, but the fact that, they drew Forsaken Monument of all things means that their spirits are now 4/4s. It means that we somehow have to answer the board and Ugin, and we can't do that in a single card. That's really frustrating, because this matchup is not unwinnable. It's actually pretty close. They hit us for 4, we go to 4. Dang. Yeah. Opponent had a pretty awesome sequence of draws there, and we fought hard, we just didn't win. So let's go ahead and open up our treasure chest. 10 play points and a Tarmogoyf from Future Sight. I don't think it's worth that much. 5 tickets, not bad. Alright, so for version 4, what did we learn? We played against exactly 0 Urza Saga decks. We definitely missed the incidental life gain from Tribute to Hunger, although Soul Shatter was much more important and much stronger, because we got our opponent to sack an Ugin. We hit like a Karn with it, I think. I think it's really important. Chalice on 1 really hurts because we're playing 10 1-drops. I don't think we can get away from that, though. Maze Mind Tome, so there's been a lot of discussion in my comments section about, why are you running Maze Mind Tome? Shouldn't you be running something else? The incidental life gain, the options between scry and draw, the fact that you don't have to pay mana for it, but sometimes you do, it's the best in slot for card advantage for this deck. And I don't think there's anything better. There's stuff that's situationally better, for sure. Some kind of drawing a card every turn, like Phyrexian Arena effect, might actually be better when mana is more precious, especially in the early game. The problem is it comes down a turn later, it doesn't provide value until the turn after. Maze Mind Tome can provide value immediately. It can scry you 2 before your next draw step, which can be very important if you're digging for a particular thing. At the top end of the deck, when we just need extra cards, something like Staff of Nin would be better. Ob Nixilis obviously kind of performs that effect a little bit. I don't think there's anything else that's cheap that's going to be good in that slot. I could see, if you dropped the curve to, 3 and played only scalar cards, playing something like Dark Confidant. The problem with playing any creatures in this deck, and I've said this before with Obliterator, I've said this before with Confidant, or, any other single threat, is we're not playing creatures. So any creature removal that our opponent has in Game 1 or Game 2 generally does nothing. If we start playing Confidants, if we start playing Obliterator, our opponent's removal is going to matter a lot more, and our deck is going to actually become worse because of it. But Kano, you're playing Wormcoil Engine. Yes, I am. Wormcoil Engine's a little different. Other than Path, Wormcoil Engine survives the big pieces of removal. It gains you a ton of life versus the decks that aren't playing those cards, like Burn. I mean, generally they play Path out of the side, but like, it's huge. Wormcoil Engine survives Double Bolt because it still gives you a life linking token and a death touch token. It survives Fatal Push because it can't be targeted. And generally, like any other hard destruction effect than Path. And versus the decks playing Path, you generally don't need Wormcoil Engine. It's just like another threat, right? So, but if we start playing Obliterator, Obliterator gets hit by Push, it gets hit by Bloodchief's Thirst, it gets hit by Path, it gets hit by Oust, it gets hit by Suspend, it gets Petty Thefted. Like, there's so many situations where Obliterator is bad. And don't get me wrong, I love Obliterator. It's one of my favorite cards in the entire game. It is a terrible threat in Modern. Because way back in the day, when Modern first started, Obliterator wasn't run because it was too hard to cast. And like post the like broken Shoal Infect bannings and stuff like that, Obliterator was really strong because the only spells that really killed it were Path and Bolt. And Bolt killing Obliterator is hilarious because it's like, oh, you want to sack your entire board to kill my one threat? Sure. But now it comes down too late. It doesn't do anything when it hits the board. It dies to most removal in the format. And like, when it's good, it's unbeatable. But when it's bad, it does nothing. And it's bad more often than it's good. That's my argument for that. Maybe there's a form of this deck that can play it. It's not this version. I think next time I play this deck, I'm going to try and drop the curve. I've been saying that for a few videos, and I mentioned at the beginning of this video why I haven't done it yet. I think the changes that we made here were mostly good. I dislike having to play Feed the Swarm in the main. I think this version of the deck, especially with Mazemind Tome, wants a little bit more instant speed removal, so maybe we drop Bloodchief's Thirst if we're playing Feed the Swarm. Like, I could see cutting 2 Bloodchief's Thirst for 2 Fatal Push, and then cutting a Feed the Swarm for, I don't know, some other 2-mana removal. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope I can get my camera to actually focus. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The last few times have been earlier than that. And yeah, y'all are wonderful human beings, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! Hey, just wanted to give a shout out to my patrons for the month of June. If you want to have your name show up in this list, there's a link to my Patreon down in the description below. Thank you all.